Blood of the Virgin by Sammy Harcum came out in May of 2023. This book is highly regarded by the comics press and many friends of mine. I've only read one Sammy Harcum story before, a short story from 2005, and I thought the short story was okay. And this book, despite it being highly lauded, I kind of had my expectations set low because I've noticed in the past 2, 3, maybe 4 years that people will hype a book or hype a creator and talk about how great they are, and then when I read it, a lot of times I'm kind of underwhelmed. And I don't know if it's just because the reality can't match the hype, or maybe it's just difference in taste. Maybe the book isn't that good, or maybe all the above. So when I came to this, I came with not a lot of expectations. I just kind of said, well, let's see what we got here. And having said that, this book is very good. I would liken this book to a movie by Stanley Kubrick, or maybe something by Francis Ford Coppola, like Apocalypse Now, or maybe one of the Christopher Nolan films like Interstellar, where you'd have to experience it multiple times in order to really understand what the book is about. Now, I've read a lot of reviews for this book, and I still don't think that they touch on a lot of the things that are there because there's so much to touch upon. This book is almost 300 pages. It's set in LA, and like LA, it just kind of sprawls. It has a wide cast of characters. It just deals with a lot of different issues, and some of them more in depth, some of them are recurring, some of them are very mild. I mean, you have Seymour and Ida, who are the main protagonists. They're a married couple with a young baby. Seymour is a struggling screenwriter, and Ida's a stay-at-home mom. And the story goes off in a lot of different directions, but always centers around them. And they both happen to be Jewish, although they're from different sects. I forget which one he is. She's an Ashkenazi. He's actually a Persian Jew. So there's themes about Judaism. There's themes about the differences of a certain religion within that religion, because she's an Ashkenazi, and sometimes, and those are the Jews that came from Germany and Central Europe, and sometimes one sect of Jews will look at another sect of Jews and not be as accepting. It talks about the difficulties of marriage. It talks about infidelity, the sleazy side of the film business, the temptations that are part of the film industry. It deals with the immigrant experience as far as having to leave a country that you love but you didn't want to leave. Not with Seymour, but with his older family. Something that I can identify with from my parents, who left Cuba in 1959 and 1960 because they wanted to get away from Castro. There's the classism about how sometimes the wealthy sometimes really just can't understand how the people who create that wealth, actually what they go through. Seymour is a very flawed human being. He's selfish, and so is his wife in some ways too. But he's very selfish. He's very driven by his dream, almost to the point of like, sometimes the point of just being obsessive with it. So it's really a hard book to review. I'm not going to review it because I don't think I could do it justice. But I will say that this is a really amazing book. Ambitious, has a lot of big ideas, and I think hits them all. It also ends sort of like real life, like a European film, where not everything is wrapped up in a nice bow. The majority of the color of the book's color is white, black, and this kind of like brownish tint. But once in a while you do get splashes of color. There's a section here, a chapter, which talks about a man who goes over and talks about his life and becoming a famous star in old Hollywood. I just love these colors because they're sort of dark, they're sort of muted, but at the same time they're vibrant. And this is LA, and you think that everything would be splashed with sun, but it's not. But like I said, it's very colorful. Just a great use of colors. I would say that this book, I don't mean everybody always talks about, is it going to be book of the year or not? I couldn't tell you because I don't vote. But I can tell you that this book it'll probably win some awards, and it'll probably get voted by some outlets as the best book of the year. And if it doesn't, this probably will be revisited in a few years as, maybe that should have been best book of the year. There's just a lot here. This is a tour de force achievement. And I could go on and on and on, but if there's any one part of the book that really just impressed me from a book that is full of impressive moments, it's this one. And just for the setup and for spoiler purposes, this is Ida, and during the story, she decides to go visit her family in New Zealand for 3 weeks, but she doesn't come back. She stays there, and she hasn't really left Seymour, but she doesn't have any real urge to come back either. And this is her destroying her baby in New Zealand. Now, this sequence, and the reason I'm mentioning this is that this is the sequence I'm talking about, Budapest, 1942. This is about 16, 17 pages. So it shows a woman who's getting her daughter dressed for school. They walk to school, and like a little girl, walking on these little like little concrete dividers, and just walking up and with a smile. And she gets dropped off, and she has that separation anxiety. She takes the bus, and then she goes to work, and then they're at night. They're having dinner. She's giving her a bath. She's reading her a bedtime story. She watches her sleep, and she looks out the window. Same thing the next day, or another day, except now along that same street you have all these billboards with Nazi symbolism put up. And then when she drops her off, she has to pin the Star of David on her. And then she leaves, and then she goes to work, but now there's a Nazi guard checking everybody's papers. Goes to work, comes home as she's going on to pick up her daughter, passes by Nazi guards. When she picks up her daughter, the lady who we see earlier, who's I guess the person who runs the daycare, she's trying to be friendly with her, and she just looks away. And then they're just having their evening together, dinner, bath, reading a bedtime story, and all of a sudden you hear boom, and then you see her knock, knock, and then all of a sudden this is the Nazis rounding up all the Jews and putting them in cattle cars, and then taking them to a camp. And you see like this one scene where she's got this can of food, and they're just sharing whatever bottom is there, and she's just trying to console her as much as possible. They get to the camp, they're and then there's your here, and they're separated. And this happened a lot where children are separated from the parents, and then the wife is processed, and then the next time you see her, the mother, her head's shaven, and she sees this chimney just with the smoke, and you realize that she knows that her daughter's probably dead and was incinerated. And then they're here doing this brutal back-breaking work, and then there's a scene where you can't see her face, but more than likely it's her that's being raped by Nazi guards, and then just this really miserable experience every day. There's this one scene where she sees somebody cutting up in a hole, and they try to escape, and when they stop, the friend, this person she accompanies, is shot in the head, and she runs off. And then fade to black, like a Kubrick film. And then in the future, she's here dressed again. Same way she was dressed before. But she's by herself, she's alone. But she's kind of like going through the motions where she's here, sleeping. She's here, looking at the bed, having dinner by herself, walking down the stairs. But then as she walks down that same street, you see parts of this wall in this building are broken and shattered from the aftermath of war. And you can see the background where you can see the city is pristine, that there's been damage. Goes to work, and she's kind of just like a robot, kind of like living every day. Whistle goes off. She's here having lunch, and then one day she goes and takes a steamer, and she just leaves. She has nothing, no family left behind. And then you see the same woman, older, dressed the same way, sleeping. She wakes up and she goes into the kitchen. Now, and then you find out that this is Ida's mother. Now, this is about 16, 17 pages of the story. It's completely wordless. And somebody could have taken this story and either made a graphic novel out of it or made a long form story out of it. They could have added a lot. But this tells a complete, one hell of a great story, 16 pages without any words. This really impressed me. Something that I see a lot of cartoonists do, and sometimes they just don't hit it, is doing the wordless story. Like I said, this is fabulous. Just was really impressed. And you kind of have to wonder, does she have this dream every day? Does she have this memory every day when she's sleeping? Does she think about it often, every day, seldom, or what? You know, it's almost like a whole infinite loop. The way she sits here, as opposed to the way she sits here, it's the same. And you also, because they don't make mention, Ida's not aware of any of this as far as anything that she says or anything that's communicated. So this is almost like one of those hidden secrets that are so painful that you live with, but you maybe can't share with anybody. Again, this book is just really extremely well done. There's a lot of different themes here, a lot of things that I won't get into. But I will say that sometimes you'll find in real life and in this book that sometimes people are just their worst enemy. They're not going to change for the better, even if they should. So that's really my thoughts. That little bit that I spoiled, trust me, there's so much more that it's just a drop in the bucket. I would highly recommend that you read this. Like I said, I don't know what awards it'll win. I'm sure it'll win some, but that's not really the point of it. The point of it is just that you're just going to read an amazing book. And as I said, once you read it, you probably want to read it again, because there's just going to be certain things that are not going to be apparent to you on a first reading. There's just too many layers. That's really it. So, again, I want to thank friends I have that recommend this, especially Colin from the Loading the Canon YouTube channel, who's a huge Sammy Harcum fan. He reviewed this book on his channel. This is just more like my insights, but it's a great book. It's a monumental achievement. That's all I can really say. Thanks.